Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our Webflow Workout series. We are back to style guides, and this is going to be the intermediate style guide version that we build in this episode, so we can jump straight into it. So as you can see, we have the remnants of our old style guide currently here, but slightly tweaked, and we're going to be building up on it to create our intermediate style guide. I added in a header, which is useful, especially if you're making a style guide template. It's good to add in details like what version it is, maybe even when you last edited it. And then of course you probably have like a link to the clonable, etc. on the side. And then we have our first section, which is typography. Now, last time we had like 3 sections: typography, colors, and buttons, but we're going to expand on all these sections. So under typography, we actually have first HTML heading tags. So these are the tags that we created last time, and we're just going to recreate them in a new format. So we have a style label, and then we have the actual text style beside it. And I think that this format is really great, especially if you have a lot of different sections in your style guide. It's easier to kind of have them laid out in this type of format. So because we already did the headings last time, we can go through this pretty quickly in just kind of duplicating this specific container to create all these 6 headings tags we have. Okay, so now our HTML heading tags are done. And this is all laid out. I think visually it looks better. And what we're going to do is actually have a different type of heading class that we can also apply when we're building our site. So we're going to create a new section where we can showcase our heading classes. So I've opened up my layers panel and just kind of minimize these different sections. You see we have here page style wrapper, and this is the one that I'm going to copy and duplicate to create a new section for our heading classes. Now, the difference between our heading classes and our HTML tags is that these are great if you don't need to tweak the styling of the heading. So if you're just using a default H1, H2, H3, etc., you can use your HTML heading tags. If you are using a specific heading class that's maybe different from the ones you already have here, like slightly larger, slightly smaller, this is when you can use your specific heading classes. So with these ones, I'm going to name them similarly to the other ones. And since we already have them laid out, it's pretty easy. I'll probably just slightly tweak all of them, make them a bit smaller. And then we'll have our heading classes done. Now, obviously with these classes, you want to make sure that you're actually applying a style to them. So I can call this heading H1 and then maybe make it 1.75, heading H2, 1.5, heading H3, and then 1.75, and like that. And so just like that, we have our heading classes done. Now, that doesn't mean that we're done with typography, because there are a lot of different classes that we can add for our typography style guide. And so we're going to once again take that section, duplicate it, and this time we're going to go for text. Let's go paragraph styles. So this is where we had the text size regular, text size large stylings in our last video. So we're going to bring them back and add them here. And now we have our different paragraph styles, which is great. Now, the last section that I think I might add to this is text styles. So these are actually we'll probably do 2 more. We'll do font weights and we'll do text styles. Text styles is when you have, like, if you want to add an underline or a strike through or those types of stylistic features, it's good to have classes for those. And then of course we have font weights, which are also good to have. So let's create 2 more sections for those specific stylings. And with our font weights done, we have one final section, which will be our text style. So for text styles, like I said, if you go to your typography section, starting off with the style section, you have italic, non-italic, you have strike through, underline, overline if you need it. You can also create different classes for capitalized, non-capitalized, non-wrapped, regular wrapping. There are a lot of different styles that you can work around with. So we'll just add a couple different styles that we might typically use in a website to this section. Okay, and I think that this is enough for our typography section. I added a lot more classes, a lot more different sections, making our style guide more thorough. Now, before we jump into expanding the color section, what I want to do is make these section headings sticky. So if you were scrolling through a long page, you would still be able to see the headings for each section as you scroll. So starting off with our page row, so this is the main section heading, we're going to change the position of that to sticky, and we're going to change the position from which it starts sticking to 0. So it'll start sticking from as soon as the top of the container reaches the top of the window until the end of the section. Second thing we're going to do is apply sticky to the subheadings. So select the subheading and change that sticky. Now you'll notice if we put this to 0 and we scroll, we don't see it. And that's because if we allow this to reach until the top of our window, it's going to be hidden behind the main section heading. So we need to give it a bit of a buffer. Initially, we'll start with 4 rem and see how that works. Oh, it actually works pretty well. Okay, so as we scroll, you can see here, for example, typography, we scroll, HTML heading tags, then we have heading classes, paragraph styles, font weights, text styles until the end of our section. Now that we're done with typography, we can move on to our next section, which is colors. And similarly with typography, I'm actually going to take one of these sections and duplicate that in here, call that color styles, and actually want to use the same grid that we were using before here. So I'll copy this and delete all these. And then for our label, because we've already determined a specific label style that we're using, we can go ahead and just use that. Okay, so I've slightly tweaked the way I want my color style to appear, and that's because I want to make sure that the style labels are consistent throughout the page as opposed to being slightly different. So we're going to go ahead and let's just delete these and duplicate this. So these are our regular color styles, but one more section we can add to our color section is if we had background color styles. So these could be different from your color styles, or they could be the same, but it sometimes helps to have 2 distinct sections for each. Now for background color styles, we probably won't have the same colors. And then we'll have these 3. So first is going to be background color black. And so we're going to actually remove that class and give us a new class of background color black. Okay, and now our background color styles are completed, which is really what we wanted. Now, do we have any other variations? We could do a new section if we had, for example, linear gradient styles. We could obviously add a lot more than 3 color styles if we wanted. You can even do a section for text color styles if you're going to be using a lot of different text colors. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to keep it to these 2 sections. Final section that we're going to potentially maybe not expand as much as just tweak the layout to match the updated layout we have on the rest of the page is our button section. So because we're not expanding this, since we already have all the different variation buttons we want. Okay, I want to make a quick stop here because I realized that because with our button styles, we have combo classes for them. What if you need to show that in the label? We could just add the combo class in the label, but I actually want to create 2 separate labels in this case, which means we're going to have to put our label in a larger container that we can apply flex to. So I'm going to wrap it in a div block and then give it a container flex so they're side by side and maybe 0.5 rem spacing. So now if I duplicate it, the new label will come next to it. And then we can write what our combo class is. And so now we have our button stylings also completed. So we have our default button styles and then we have our alternative button styles. Now we are almost done. However, the last thing that we might want to add is a section for our rich text. So that would fall under text stylings. And I forgot to add this previously, but especially if you have any type of rich text element, it really helps to have a standardized styling that you can then tweak if needed. So we're going to add this under text styles as our final typography section. So now that we've added our rich text element, we're going to give it the class text rich text. And then you can go in and make all sorts of tweaking for how you want your rich text elements to look like as a default, or if you apply this styling. So we're going to do that really quickly. I think I will just specifically show how to make rich text styling tweaks, just in case anyone hasn't used rich text as much. So with rich text, once you've added a rich text element, you can click on any of these classes. You can also obviously add to it if needed, but from the ones that they give you already, you can click on them, like adding to paragraph and apply styling. Now styling works, you can either apply it to all paragraphs or all elements in any rich text, or if you want to tweak the styling to this specific rich text class, once you select all ... make sure to select this button. So this will tweak the paragraphs to look this way for all paragraphs in rich text that have this class. Okay, and I think I'll just stick with the styling for the rich text element, and our updated style guide is complete. So what did we add today? We added new typography sections. To expand on it, we've also expanded our color sections a bit, and we've just revamped the layout for our button sections. We've also updated how the style guide looks with sticky headings, so it's easier to navigate, and just tweak the appearance so it's a lot clearer when you're viewing it. In 2 weeks, we will be working on our final advanced style guide, which will have a lot more different components to it and a tweaked layout once again, so stay tuned for that. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments.